welcome and thank you for joining us. And our guests today on this panel are Ashlesha and Alex from Mast Owl Technologies. Hey guys, thanks for
Hello.
joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So if you guys haven't heard of Mast Owl Technologies before, you should have, but you may be new here, or obviously I don't expect everyone to pay attention to all of our episodes. But Ali and I did an interview with the CEO, Alex Poole, last year. And we had been kind of known some of the people at Mast Owl as well throughout the years in previous jobs. And we've had some wonderful people from that company in our community. Shout out to Mike as well, who came to OT Skatacon. And at that time, Alex told us that they were working on some AI stuff and that they had some engineers that were kind of specifically, working on some R&D stuff as well as, implementing AI technologies for their customers. And from a systems integrator perspective, Ali and I were just very interested, and we wanted to talk about this at some point in the future. And here we are in June of 2025. So it's taken a while. But this is certainly a hot topic. I think one of the biggest topics at Automate this year, in which we were able to also meet a lot of the Mast Owl Technologies team. And yeah, so we just thought we'd have a candid conversation, talk to some people that are actually working on some of the stuff, see where they're at, what they've seen, what sort of trends they're looking at. And yeah, so with that, I will try to stop monologuing. But before we get into the conversation and let Ashlesha and Alex introduce themselves, I just want to say, hi, Courtney. Do you want to tell us how you're doing today and what you're up to?
Today's been all over the place with, meeting invites, not working, just being like one thing. And then it's the first day of summer vacation for my kids. So everybody overslept a little bit and schedules feel a little bit off. So today's just one of those days.
Yep. Well, we try to show
I'm going
up.
to be on a schedule here at a regular time.
We try to show up to our regularly scheduled programming, even when we're having one of those days. So, like I mentioned, Brandon Peters from Shockwave Automation is currently in a mine and is not going to be able to make it out in time. And then Allie, I believe, is also on the road. So she regrettably informed us that she won't be able to join today. But we have 4 people, and I think 4 people make a panel. So let's go. Ashlesha, such a cool name. The first time I've seen it and heard it, so I will hopefully get it right throughout the rest of the stream. So do you guys work more on, technologies internally to support your engineering team, or do you work on, is it like customer-facing solutions that you're building as well?
Blend of both, but we are more focused on building our in-house solutions that support our engineers.
Okay.
And ease off the pressure.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, because I think a lot of the discussion that I've seen and what happens at trade shows and stuff are vendors that are using AI or selling products that use AI or provide AI to an end user or to, we have a vision system that uses AI, right? And then a systems integrator goes and integrates that for a customer. But using AI tools is also, I think, kind of we're not the future. It depends on what kind of company you are. If you're Mast Owl, it's not the future, it's now. And if you're probably many of the more established, slower moving big companies, then you may be looking at it as the future of your internal workforce. And that may be my bias. I tend to work with small companies and startups, and I find that they often can be more agile at being willing to look at these sorts of things, and they don't have a huge established process with lots of departments that would be disrupted by starting to utilize AI tools internally to be more efficient. But I also, at the same time, have worked for small companies that have slept on this kind of stuff and said, well, it's too much of a distraction, it's not mature, we're not going to jump on that bandwagon yet. And then they get eclipsed by competition that got on it earlier. But then I also read an interesting report that I think it was yesterday or the day before, that many big companies are dropping projects for AI, POCs that they started in the last 2-3 years, many of them are being closed. They're not seen as successful. They're either decreasing or redirecting their investments in AI. So I'm curious, I guess, from your journey, is this something that you started doing, you know, early on? How long have you guys been developing and investing in AI technologies at MOT? And is it, a kind of still a science experiment, or are you doing things in production and feeling like you're actually getting value out of it?
Yeah. It is an experiment and it is still under development, but we are sure that it's going to be big and it's going to gain us huge results and huge returns. So, and I honestly think that it is that time for AI where its grammatical identity is changing from a noun to a verb, just
Oh,
like it did for Google.
yeah.
Some years Google was originally a noun, and then it became rampant all over the world. And few years ago, not long ago, people started using Google as a verb. Google this, Google that, and I
Yeah.
think that's what is going to happen to AI. AI this, and people are already talking about that. AI this system, how do you AI this problem? How do you AI this problem? So I think it's that time for AI.
Yeah. And speaking of Google, I mean, that's the reason why we're having some technical difficulties today, because Google is no
Oh,
longer
yes.
just a search engine. They are also ubiquitous technology provider of all sorts, right? Uh,
Yes.
but and these are the types of investments that really, they return outsized results, but they take some time to really get to that point before you can proliferate or start to gain those exponential results from something that scales. And
Right.
we're at an interesting time right now where it's like, I think some of the stuff that's been tested and built for the last year, 2 years is either going to fail or scale. Like it's either going to work and then now it's going to start reaping those big benefits, or you'll find that that particular project or that particular outcome that you had in mind is really not a good use case for AI, or it was the wrong one. Um, and Yeah, I was I guess not terribly surprised to hear about a lot of these big POCs not moving forward. I think that's kind of always been a cycle with all of these new technologies, particularly when big, Fortune 500, manufacturers kind of they do these POCs knowing that most of them are not going to turn out to be real projects. But I think they do it because they learn from it. From every POC that doesn't turn into a real thing, you learn something, hopefully. And that, just has to kind of refine your process as you go. And I don't think that means people are giving up on it and saying, oh, never mind, we tried AI and now we're not going to anymore because this POC didn't work out. But we are in this kind of interesting time where it's like prove it or, move on or try something different. So, Alex, I'd love to hear from your perspective. What are you seeing as some of the more promising things that you guys have been building or talking about, versus maybe something? Are there any things that you tried and that you decided was not going to work out or not going to be the application that you're going to focus on?
Sure, absolutely. I can't necessarily discuss too much in deep detail, like what we're actually creating.
Right.
Um, it's kind of under wraps for now, but we'd love to talk about it in the future, potentially on another podcast or another episode, potentially.
Yeah, let's
Discussing.
follow up in like a
That'd be
year or
great.
less than a year. Things are moving faster than that. Maybe in the
Absolutely.
fall. I also, my company is working on AI stuff that I can't talk about because until you release it, it's kind of, it's like product development. You gotta plan a launch and, figure out really who's supposed to know what and how you present it and so on. But yeah, I guess in vague terms, if there's anything that you can share.
Absolutely. I mean, so from my standpoint as an engineer working in the field, the biggest asset that you can possibly have is having another tool in your tool belt, right? So whether you're trying to troubleshoot, whether you're trying to develop a new project for anything out there, having another tool that can help you walk through the process. For example, I mean, right now ChatGPT, all the different, language models out there. You can ask it like, hey, I'm trying to write some code for Ignition or Python or something, and it can go ahead and develop, I would say 90% of what you need, and you have a great starting point of where you're trying to go through and trying to actually troubleshoot your way through that one, and then trying to actually make it work for your project. So, as a need on my end, what I want as for industrial purposes is being able to go through the maintenance process and try to speed up that process as much as you can. Because at the end of the day, I mean, production is king, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to save money, you're trying to make it reliable, and you're trying to make it as safe as possible for everyone that's actually going to be working on it. So what I see a need is having an AI out there that can actually work through those processes. And basically, that's what I like to have going forward for the industrial automation world in terms of AI. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, there's different AI models out there for just about anything, whether it's process, refine, trying to make it as optimized as possible, or even going through the finances, if you will, or just trend models for how everything's running. Before I left my last position, we were actually implementing a vision system to use an AI that can detect fork trucks going into the vicinity of something and try to make it as safe as possible for another operator that's out there. There's just so many use cases out there for AI, and just in general, especially in factories.
Yeah, yeah. And image AI has come a long way as well. And there are so many providers of like embedded vision stuff. I used to be in machine vision integration, but 15 years ago. And it has definitely come a really, really long way. And then one of the cool things too is like a lot of facilities already have a lot of cameras, but they're used for all different things, right? You have machine vision cameras, which are totally different from just general like security access cameras, closed caption cameras, and now there's a lot more opportunity, I think, to utilize feeds from existing cameras that may not be as perfect as what you require from like quality control inspection machine vision, which is more of what like I think of when I think of that. But I've seen a lot of stuff out there lately too for just utilizing camera feeds that you already have for things like object recognition and detection.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the use cases of, if you think of an entire factory, are kind of endless because there's not only tons of different processes that can be helped by AI, but tons of different types of AI that can be used for all kinds of different things. One of the bigger ones that we've been talking about lately is like predictive maintenance. I mean, that's been a use case for a really long time. One of the earlier use cases that I think actually saw a lot of benefit from AI utilizing like time series analysis of data, right? Vibration, temperature, all those sorts of things. And it's not a new thing, but not everybody is using it yet either.
Right.
And what do you see as like, how do smaller companies even begin to think about how to get started with this? Do they even think about the AI, or do they just look at kind of the vendor landscape, and most of them should be using AI by now if they have a good product that produces good results?
That's a great question, and I really think the barrier for entry isn't as high as it used to be, right? The you want to have good data coming in, and it totally depends on your use case. So I mean, the smaller companies, I mean, if you're just getting any sort of data and it's relevant to your process, there's an AI model out there that can probably help you refine your process or try to optimize it as much as you can. And like you said, a lot of these companies have cameras already in place. I mean, it's not too expensive to add another AI model out there that can actively track even just people walking into the facility. And I've seen AI models out there that can track the faces. I mean, it's a little scary, but they can track the faces and be like, all right, this person's on site, and for safety reasons, you want to make sure that they're on site and they leave whenever they can, just for a certain time span, just to make sure they're safe. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that these camera systems are safety rated yet, and I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but eventually, I hope it does, because it would save a whole lot of extra parts for all these other factories that are trying to put this and implement it. But yeah, no, it just every company is tracking some sort of data for their product. So whether or not you're using an AI or not, it's a question of when, because I really do feel like the time to get into AI or just the field itself was yesterday. I mean, all these companies, they really should at least use it as a tool.
No, I was reading kind of an open letter. I guess several companies, well-known big companies like Shopify and a few others, have sent out like big memos that got into the news, and mainstream media picks this kind of stuff up because those are household names, whereas like the mainstream media coverage of our industry. I wish there was an AI that could just go around and combat all the articles that say robot injured or killed a person, and just be like, actually, we reviewed the footage and clearly this safety protocol was not followed, and this robot just did what it would do in that situation. It didn't attack anybody, right? But yeah, these open letters to like big companies are sending to their employees saying, hey, we're becoming an AI first company. We're gonna basically, like, if you're not using AI in your job, you need to be. And I think there used to be this fear of like automating yourself out of a job, and so a lot of software engineers used to be able to maybe automate some of their tasks, but they would not share that because it was like risky. Because why would we need you now if you automated your own job? Which I think is incredibly stupid to run your company like that. If somebody's smart enough to automate their job, like give them a damn raise and then give them some more stuff to do.
Agreed.
Other people.
But now it's become kind of like, if you want to be an employee of the future, you should at least have some ideas of what the tools are available to you to use.
I think minimum people should be using AI note takers now, because I was blown away by my recent doctor's visits where they actually held up something and said, hey, I'm going to use an AI note taker. Can I, are you okay with that? And then they fully engaged with me during the whole, appointment versus sitting here and taking notes and looking at me and taking notes. And it was just a different experience with them just not having to think about that part.
Yeah. There's a company that we engaged with also somewhat recently, and I'm going off on my original point here, but called Cogram, and they make an AI note taker that doesn't record the calls. It'll keep the transcript, but for like if you walk onto a site, you can basically have it create a field report for you while you're on site, and it won't keep the recording, but it'll just kind of use the transcript to then create the notes. And I think those sorts of things are pretty like really useful, because it's hard to be able to capture everything as a person. If you're trying to pay attention to the client, do this, do that all at the same time, and it can definitely help us stay engaged with what matters. It can also, I think, be really distracting if you use it wrong, and if you're doing something that and then there's privacy concerns and stuff like that, but we work all those out. It's like it's gonna get implemented or automated regardless, so figuring out how to do it right is important. But yeah, this company sent out this whole company-wide letter and was basically like, we are AI first, and you need to, as an employee here, you need to kind of keep your pulse on these things, and if you have suggestions, like, we have an internal team that evaluates AI tools and makes them available to the whole company. And so if you ever run across a tool or something that you find to be interesting or something that you tried, share it with our AI team, and they will kind of like evaluate it on their own and decide if now or later it makes sense to implement it. Something I thought was interesting too, they said don't leave out a tool that you think is interesting just because it's too expensive. Yeah. Because A, there may be productivity gains that, you don't think about that make it so worth it to implement this, or B, the price will probably come down once this becomes more ubiquitous. So
absolutely. And for the smaller or brand new companies, I would say AI is shortening the knowledge gap for just different sectors just in general. Yeah. So like the main leg up in the industrial world that I see is knowledge based on time and production. So for example, if you have a mill or a factory that's been running for 30 years and has employees, that have been there that whole time, they have the know-how of how the machines run in that process. They know the typical issues that might arise, can fix it quicker than a new greenfield site. Older companies have been tweaking and iterating on these processes for years so that they can make it run as optimally as possible, right? Well, I truly think that AI can help create a space where these new sites can fill in the gaps of time, with knowledge that might not be there before. So I highly recommend even the newest of companies to try it out.
Yeah. Like I started using Otter AI, a note taker.
Yeah.
That they're one of the more well-known, I think, AI note takers now, but they were one of the first in the space, and I was a beta customer of theirs back in 2016, and I think they were charging me $300 a month. um, to sit in on my Google and Teams meetings and take notes. And the kicker was it took 24 hours to get the notes back because they actually had to be reviewed by a person because the AI was so bad at that time still. And I remember as one of their early customers, like they were seeking investment and they were going through a round of VC funding, and their investors called me. I guess I agreed to, give them a little bit of my time as a beta customer. And I remember them asking, like, do you find this useful? And I was like, well, kind of. In theory, yes. Like, I would like to have my notes, like, right away, though. It kind of sucks to have to wait, like, 24 hours. And at that point, I probably wanted to follow up on the meeting already anyway. And then they were like, and, would you continue to pay $300 a month for this? And I was also like, well, no, probably not. Like, I think I'm going to cancel because I just am not getting enough value out of 24-hour later getting some notes for $300 a month. But I just knew, I was like, but I know that this is going to get so much better. And I really wanted to be one of the first people to, like, see if this was valuable.
Sure.
And here we are. It's almost 10 years later. Before, like, it really wasn't until, like, I would say last year that now, it's just common practice for AI note takers to be in these virtual calls.
Systems, so which takes notes for you and also summarizes the meeting details for you. And I think, so from what we were talking earlier, I think most of the manufacturers who fail at AI, where they go wrong is they try to AI everything at once.
Yeah.
I think for starters, you should focus on the software side of AI automation. For example, things like customer service automation, and focus on projects that rely on existing data sources. Like you already have the PLCs and sensors and camera in place, and you could use cloud and the cloud platforms or on-premise software platforms will take care of the heavy lifting. So you don't need so there's no need of new physical infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And these AI softwares can analyze your sensor data and machine log to determine machine failure even before it happens. So that way you can reduce your downtime and maintenance costs. So, and then again, there are these natural language tools that can be used to automate maintenance ticketing or log parsing. So I think everybody, the manufacturer should focus on the software side of AI first before getting into the hardware part. So yeah, and even when you get to the hardware part, just try small, begin with a small pilot project in one area, and then measure the results and then expand from there.
Somebody made a good point to me this earlier today, that to stop using the terms POC or proof of concept and start thinking in terms of proof of value. It was from a talk, I guess, at the CSIA meeting last week, which I was not there in San Diego, but the Control Systems Integrators Association meeting. Is that something that you guys attend? Like, not you two personally, but people from MassDAL, do you know?
I'm not really sure, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah, you guys are not the right people to ask. But there's definitely a lot of the industry associations in our industry, whether that's I've been going to the Association for High Tech Distribution meetings. There's always an AI speaker. And I'm assuming the same is probably going for CSIA. I know it's a hot topic at A3 and some of these other forums, particularly I think the leadership ones, because those are the managers and leaders of companies trying to figure out how to strategize within this rapidly sort of changing landscape. With you guys, obviously, it's a bit different because you're a newer company. I don't know that it's very common to have a department like what you guys do with emerging technologies and kind of dedicated to AI, both internally and then I'm assuming that kind of also extends to some expertise assisting your customers, right?
I wouldn't say that it's specifically for AI, and yeah, you like you said, it's a new idea, but we focus on looking out for new technologies um, be it AI or any other thing that
Okay,
could help us in the better our industrial automation process. So it's not confined to AI.
gotcha. What are some of the other emerging technologies that you guys see as, being of value to your customers in the coming years?
So I think the future of AI in industrial automation space is heading straight towards things like digital twins and virtual factory visits.
Yeah.
So I think an engineer can visit any factory anywhere in the world without even setting a foot inside. And with the help of augmented reality, you can have all the information that the AI collects, all this maintenance history and equipment status overlaid directly onto your view, and you can actually get a fully immersive tour of a facility. And then while you're taking the tour, you can stop by at any machine, click on that machine, and look at its maintenance history and what's its life status. And if any machine needs attention, then you can maybe have digital highlights, just like an arrow pointing out the exact part that's malfunctioning. And then you could also have suggested fixes that you can see on your screen, maybe with animated instructions. So I think that's where we are heading. And talking about the digital twin, so digital twin is a virtual factory, a virtual replica that sits on your computer of a real world factory. And with the help of a digital twin, you can simulate all the what if scenarios. For example, you can change the equipment, rearrange the equipment, and um, you know, uh, changed maybe any changes to the production line. You can simulate those changes in using a digital twin without having to make any real world changes. So I think that's pretty cool, and that's where we are heading.
Yeah, I think that's where we've been heading for a really long time. And I see that in the new build, like greenfield factories are definitely being built with this technology from the get go. Are you guys seeing this actually coming to fruition in brownfield factories where you're coming in and integrating some stuff into an existing factory, or trying to, I guess, create digital twins of existing factories that have different equipment from different OEMs from different eras connected to each other, or maybe not connected? Like, I guess that's kind of the chasm that I've always seen, is like we're talking this like future state, and it applies to a segment of the industry, which is huge companies and greenfield builds, brand new builds. And then the long tail is like all the small little companies or smaller manufacturers that have this mix of equipment that and we have this like just common thing in our industry that everybody runs. They buy capital equipment and like run it way too long. Maybe they're not doing proper preventative maintenance. They're not updating and upgrading some of their controls before they go obsolete. So you have this like really mixed bag of old and new stuff. Are we getting closer to being able to create a digital twin in that type of environment, or what are you guys seeing out there?
So I think one of the biggest challenges that manufacturers face is having good quality
Yeah.
data availability. So most of and I agree that most of the manufacturers operate with a mix of old and new equipment, and this can be one of the challenges because most of the legacy systems or legacy equipments, they do not integrate well with modern AI systems. So you need to use a lot of mediumwares and connectors to for integrating AI systems with those kind of equipments.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not have good quality data, then I think the results are going to be inaccurate
Yeah.
because data is the fuel for AI, and AI thrives on data. If you do not follow good data management practices, then no matter how advanced your AI model is, it's not going to yield good result. It's just like garbage in, garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I agree. I mean, the it's so much easier to do that for a greenfield site, because you're starting from scratch. You have everything documented as you go along. Whereas once you start getting to the brownfield sites, it's like, well, this has been Frankenstein together for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Um, you're not going to have every document. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's difficult to do. I mean, even the best of engineers have struggle whenever they have a stack of red lines they're trying to put into the document control database.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just moving on from legacy code to the forward, the newest code is going to be very difficult. I mean, even at my old facility, it's still Fortran in some places, and you just can't get around it sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge. It's very much a challenge.
One of the things that I heard is different about MassDowell from some other integrators is that you guys really are willing to kind of work with the manufacturer and take a step back and evaluate where they're at and what they need and help them figure out what they need versus just somebody coming to you and say, hey, we want to do this, and then you bid on it, right? So do you guys get the opportunity to kind of strategize with some of your customers about this and let them start from, where they really are? Do you find that there's maybe a difference between where they think they are and where you see that they are? Or can you talk? Is that anything that you guys are involved in and can talk about, or is that more of a different part of the company? I'm kind of springing you guys some surprise stuff here now as I think of it.
So we don't work very closely with the manufacturers. We have a dedicated team which works with our manufacturers. We call
Yeah.
it the solutions execution team. So I am not very familiar with our manufacturing process. But I think Alex, coming from an automation engineering background, he might have a better idea.
Yeah, so our guys, I mean, they're not going to shy away from any challenge that's presented to them. And I think Alex Poole touched upon it whenever you guys talked with you, whenever he talked with you guys last. So if there's a problem out there and it's difficult, and a lot of other integrators are going to be, we don't necessarily handle this. MOT is not going to say no. MOT is going to say, hey, let's sit down with you. Let's try and figure this out. So they're going to try, and we're going to try and solve the problem, but we're going to work with that customer as much as we can
Yeah.
to get them to understand what the problem is, and then go ahead and have an answer for it later on. So yeah, that's something that we do differently that I have seen, in previous experiences. It's actually quite amazing. So, yeah, if anybody's listening, give Alex Poole's podcast a listen to. He can definitely describe to the nitty gritty what MOT is all about. But no, we go from projects from the initial proposal, scope definition through design, procurement, installation, and commissioning, and then we'll try to tailor this solution to this custom problem. And if it's like a run of the mill problem, that any integrator can do. I think MOT also reserves the right to be like, look, this is you can find a cheaper solution maybe somewhere else. There's other solutions out there that can be fixed this way, and we won't be afraid to say no to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually, I don't think I learned about that in the podcast with Alex. That was definitely, I think, a little bit more like leadership focused and that sort of
Sure.
thing. But it was at the A3 meeting, the A3 Business Forum earlier this year in January, that I actually heard that from Alex, that you guys do take this approach, and it can be slower sometimes than just saying, hey, we do XYZ. If you need XYZ, come to us, right? Because the people just come to you when they need X, Y, or Z, and those things may move a little bit quicker. But to really be a full-on solutions provider that can help customers figure out what they need in addition to just where to get it or how to do it, it's a challenge that is very rewarding if it works, because you end up with these really long-term relationships. You're very much a trusted advisor, not just a vendor or a solutions provider. But it takes a certain type of team and a certain type of company to be willing to invest in that, because it doesn't always result in as quick of a PO as when you have a very simple or defined problem. And I remember I ended up making an introduction for Alex because I heard some other guys kind of talking about that they don't have the capacity to do that for their customers. Um,
He's
and
he's
they're
great.
like, this customer doesn't even know what they want or what they need, and we don't know what to do with that. And I was like, I know who can do something with that. It's MOT. Um, that is actually how I got my start also in when I was a machine vision integrator, and I was in the Bay Area in the middle of all these like R&D centers of people that were way smarter than me, PhDs that could, use a USB camera and LabVIEW, and like they could rig anything they wanted and they could probably make it work. And the only reason they would call me is if they couldn't get it to work, and they're like, okay, now you give it a shot, right? So you kind of, it's a tricky position to be in, to be the person or company that's willing to take the hard problems that aren't easily solvable by everybody else. But I think in the long run, it differentiates you in a big way, and it allows you to build up a wealth of knowledge that's very different, and I think a lot more valuable in some ways than people that just have a standard kind of product. But yeah, I'm curious, I guess, just how much of that reflects into your side of the business at all. But you guys are already obviously working on some of the hard problems, the future problems, the figuring stuff out that hasn't been figured out before. So it seems like that's pretty baked into the DNA of the company at this point.
It sure is. From the top down, it's thinking differently. I love it. It's every day's an adventure. I love it.
Yeah. I spent some time in doing AI for supply chains. Again, this was, when I tried out that AI note taker, it was because we were using AI in the enterprise to do predictive things in supply chain, which was new and hard and expensive at the time, just like all the AI stuff back then. But we got some really great, I got some really great meetings with big companies. They were like, we need AI to do X. And then I would feel like, I actually want to tell you, you need a better database and some time series forecasting. And should I say that when you really brought me in here because you're so excited about the AI? But I realized and I learned, and we learned as a company at that time, that it doesn't help anybody for you to like jump above the maturity steps where a customer really is, because that's how you end up with just a failed POC, right? They thought they needed something to accomplish something, and really that wasn't the right tool. And I think there's a lot of parallels to that in automation technology in general, right? Like when cobots became kind of ubiquitous, it's like, oh, it's so easy to just throw a cobot at anything, but is it the right solution?
Do you need 6 axes? Are you
Yeah,
sure
so
you
Courtney,
need
this
6
is
axes?
one of your areas, right? Like having come from that world, did you ever have to tell a customer, like, actually what you need is this something totally different? Like you probably shouldn't even buy a cobot for this?
Something I did appreciate about working for manufacturers is it's kind of an interesting position to be in if you're selling a 6-axis robot and the customer does not need a 6-axis robot. But you're better off, everybody's better off if you just tell them, like, hey, if you put in a Scara, you're probably going to go a lot faster and save some money, and just certain recommendations where if you force fit something, nobody is going to be happy with it. So,
yeah. And this is one of those industries where like reputations live a long time. They go beyond companies too. I mean, I'm sure one of the reasons that MOT has been so successful is it's part of the team, part the DNA, but then also the leadership of somebody like Alex. I'm sure he comes with a lot of potential customers that just straight up trust that he does the right thing and that he built a company based on the same kind of integrity that he's always had, right? Do you guys see that kind of extend like to when you interact with people? That there's a history maybe larger than MOT, or does it feel like it's just like a brand new company?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we went to, a CED fair, and Alex was with me, and you just kind of see the interactions between everybody and himself. And it's just like, wow, he's made a lot of great connections and a lot of friends, and his history in the automation world and industrial world just in general. So it's pretty neat. It's very amazing. So me coming from, just a customer, it's awesome to see like the integration side. This is my first foray into it, and it's been nothing but a real treat. It's been fantastic.
What are some of the coolest facilities that you've seen now that you've been in the integration space? Because when you work in a plant, all you see is your own plant all day. But when you work at an integrator or a vendor, at least that was one of my favorite things about some of my jobs is like I get to go in so many different plants and see how so many different things are made.
So, me personally, I've only been to a couple. I haven't been to too many yet. I actually got my start here at MOT just actually several months ago. So
Oh, yay. Okay,
it's
you're new.
yeah,
Congrats.
I'm still it's been fantastic. So I can't quit saying that word.
Yeah.
But no, it's great to see. Like, so you go out there, you see all the new tech that's coming out there, and in my past experiences, you see all how how other people are thinking about processes that you're doing and how they're doing it differently. You're still trying to get product from A to B, but they might be taking route, a squiggly line versus a straight line. Just to dumb it down a little bit, but it's super. It's just it. I don't know. It's really cool to see. Like, because there's 100 million different ways to do any certain different type of action.
Yeah.
It's just being able to see it and then apply it to your own is actually, I mean, any engineer's dream is to try and fix whatever they're trying to work on, right? Break it down, build it back up.
So are there any applications that you guys have tried that you really, in the end, found to be more well suited for traditional automation approaches and not involving AI at all?
So, I guess we are really small with our AI solutions right now. Right now, we are just focused on the software-based solutions.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten into the hardware-based solutions. So I think we are fairly new in the game, but I think automation. I think projects which involve which are very critical and involve high precision shouldn't usually be touched by AI because manufacturers do not believe in incorporating AI for such projects. I haven't seen, I haven't, I mean, this is my perspective again. So this is what I feel should be untouched by AI, and
Yeah.
this is where you should not be implementing AI. But yeah, because safety is first, and that is one of our tenets. So, and then there could be other automation projects which rely heavily on the legacy equipments and, building a mediumware and getting all those connectors and getting them integrated with the AI system is going to be a huge overhead. So I think in such kind of projects, it's better to go with the traditional automation practices rather than implementing AI.
Yeah. I think anything like where there can be this margin of error, it's okay in some situations, but for
Right.
anything critical or safety related, it's never okay
Yes.
for there to be a potential of the wrong answer, then causing something either safety wise or just, the usually the stakes are high when it comes to bad product or downtime or any of those sorts of things. Which I think is also why we as an industry are more hesitant, I think, to introduce this kind of stuff. Because, I mean, who hasn't seen I accidentally CC'd instead of BCC'd everyone on an email kind of thing. And the worst thing that happens is you feel usually really, really bad. A lot of people's email inboxes get crazy. Or you share sensitive information that you shouldn't, right? Because whoever else is on that list. But generally those sorts of mistakes are not life or death. And in our, world, if you accidentally execute the wrong thing on a PLC, or I don't know, there's just way too many things that can go wrong that can have huge stakes. That, yeah, it's very different than.
And then I would like to highlight that there are traditional machine learning and computer vision algorithms, and then there are these new upcoming new edge deep learning algorithms. And most of the manufacturers, they try to stick with the traditional computer vision algorithms because I think it's because of their accuracy and precision. They tend to work better in such environments. And the deep learning algorithms are kind of not that accurate, I would say. So most of the manufacturers tend to stick with the traditional algorithms. So there's traditional and modern in AI as well. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole big debate too. What is AI? What's machine learning?
yeah.
Is traditional machine learning considered AI? Is it not? Generative AI versus neural nets that make decisions. I mean, there's a whole, obviously a whole scholarly world to this that most of us don't have the time to bother reading those papers and whatnot. I did for a while, but it's like when it's not your job, there's only so much of that information you can absorb, and then it changes. It changes very quickly. So it can be kind of hard to pay attention to all this. I feel like there's so many AI startups that are solving specific problems using a specific AI that they've come up with or on a data set that they've collected or whatever that is. Do you guys you see that you will be potentially like integrating AI solutions for your customers as part of your tool belt at all? Or is that in the cards for, do you know? Or is it more that you are kind of working on, just bespoke solutions? Or have you had any chance to, or hear from customers that they're looking at like specific software or hardware that comes already baked in with AI?
I think we are currently developing some of the solutions that could potentially benefit our customers, and we definitely plan to incorporate all these newly all these new technologies into our products. But as I said, we are just starting small, and we are going to measure the results of our small project first and then grow big eventually. But as far as adopting new technologies is concerned, we are definitely up for that.
So
Yeah, we're not going to shy away from anything new.
yeah. So if I am an AI startup that has some cool new thing and that I think can serve the manufacturing market, or industrial automation market, are you guys the potential people that would take a look at to see if that would be a technology that MOT would want to even consider for their customers or engage with? Do you guys kind of, keep an eye out in the field for those sorts of things? Or is it more so just you guys are more building in-house solutions based on what you're seeing and what your customers need?
I think what we're trying to start with in-house solutions first, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then in the future, once we've had enough data and we've hit all these metrics that we're trying to hit with where we're trying to get to, we're trying to implement it with all the other outside as well, outside projects as well. So yes, in the future, ideally, yes.
So if customers, I guess if manufacturers are watching this and they think, hey, we're trying to do some AI stuff, but we're not quite sure where it fits, should they contact you? Do you guys go through those, like, do you scope that stuff with them? Or do we wait for an announcement of the cool AI tools that you guys are developing when that's going to be ready for market? What do you guys see as kind of, if people interested in working with MOT are following along, what would you want them to know, and how should they get in contact with you? And what for, I guess?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So we haven't done a formal announcement for what we're doing yet, but eventually there will be. And what we'd like to do is work small with some of our smaller companies that we're currently working with, or work smaller with other companies that we are currently working with.
Yeah.
And then once we get to a point where we're ready to, I'm here, hello world, we're going to have, basically on our splash page, we're going to try and have it as much as advertised as possible on our, MOT website. We're going to go to like the vendor shows, discuss, hey, this is what we have, please try this out, but I foresee us going through maybe a marketing pivot at some point where we're not in full development right now. We're trying to get this out so we can have more data coming in, so we can have more metrics to actually improve our software. And then we get that feedback loop, and it's only getting better. It's like a cast iron skillet, it only gets better over time.
I love cooking with cast iron. The reason also that we did want to have Brandon. Now I have a Brendan on my team, and I'm trying not to call him Brandon, and vice versa. Brandon Peters from Shockwave Automation is a systems integrator out of Canada in Saskatchewan, if I'm getting that right. He works with a lot of oil and gas customers, as well as mines and some, I'm sure, other types of customers. But the reason I wanted to invite him to this talk today, and why I think we will have a follow-up talk at some point later this year, and hopefully he'll be there, is he's kind of doing the same thing, right? You guys as systems integrators, you really are out there seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly of what manufacturers are going through, right? Because they need that partner to come bolt on this new thing that they wanted to do and make it work with the rest of the line, or do line improvements, or whatever it is that you guys are, helping with. And I think you have a unique lens into the manufacturing landscape that companies that just are making solutions that go into factories, they see it from a different, they kind of have a lens on like their own technology, right? We make motors, right? So we're going to make the most out of, I don't know, AI assisted software for motors, or predictive maintenance for motors, right? Those are the sorts of things that they're looking at building into their products and services. Software companies, obviously, MES systems, SCADA systems. I'm sure everybody at this point is looking at how do we bake more AI into our software, and from the standpoint of whatever process they touch. But systems integrators are unique in the sense that you look at all of those things, and then how do they fit and how do they work for this type of customer and this type of customer. So I am really curious to see, as I see systems integrators developing their own AI products, what are they and how are they different from a company that straight up says, hey, I'm developing a software that uses AI to do, well, let's take, for example, I had on the show last week, Britt Bartolini from MaintainX, and they have a system, CMMS is what it's called, the category of software, but I don't remember what it stands for right now, but it has to do with maintenance data.
Yeah, scheduling PMs and trying to make sure you have all of the
stuff
absolutely.
like that. Yeah, so that's a particular category of software, and so they have built a software that is very AI heavy, but in that particular space, right? And so they go and to that function sell to different manufacturers. And they were not a first mover in that industry. So it's also an interesting kind of dynamic, right? Between like established companies building AI into their products and the new ones coming on the market going, hey, I built this thing in like 3 months that it took you 20 years because AI, right? If you're starting out building software right now, I don't see why anybody would like write code from scratch completely, and that sort of thing. So there's some advantages to being a newcomer now in some ways. Although our industry is like kind of slow moving, it's very also based on trusted relationships. So it can be hard to be a newcomer and say, hey, I got this great new product that's going to solve all your problems, but I've only been in this space for 5 minutes and nobody's really going to give you the time of day because you don't really understand the reasons why everything is the way it is. And but systems integrators, I think, kind of sit at that intersection of you got a really bird's eye view into a lot of things. And so I am very curious to see what you guys come up with, what turns out to be launch worthy from a product perspective, product or service, I guess. And then I'll put this out there as well. If you're a systems integrator building any kind of AI for your customers, we would love to potentially include you in a future panel, or just be aware, send us your press release if you, put something out there. I think it's a space I'm particularly interested because it is so much less obvious, I guess, what those solutions are and how they come out of a systems integration company versus a pure play like product company. So I guess with that, we have found today that the waters are still a little muddy when it comes to AI in industrial automation, AI, and particularly when you're talking about really implementing in brownfield situations. But I think it's really cool that as a systems integrator, you guys are investing in this as a department, as a competency, as something that you're developing internally. Because it's one thing to help other people use things if you're not actually, trying them out on your own and figuring out where the value lies for yourself. Courtney, I know I've kind of hogged the airtime here. Is there anything that you want to ask before we sign off?
No, honestly, I've been happy to sit back on this one. You kind of nailed it. I'm not happy.
Yep, it's hairy a little bit still. So I think this is an ongoing conversation that we want to keep having. I'm still also trying to figure out, NVIDIA having announced last year all these big partnerships in industrial automation. They're partners with most of the large tech companies. They're providing building blocks, right, that go into other products. And I've seen a lot of announcements of partnerships last year. I've seen now demos coming out of what some of these partnerships are producing, but some of them are still very much under wraps and or in development, including my own company has a partnership with NVIDIA, and we are not yet releasing or announcing what we're building with that. Because I think there's also some, this is an unproven thing. It's brand new, and so it's hard to know exactly what development timelines look like, what you may have an idea and, something that looks good, and then the proof is really in also, getting the real test data. And you don't want to release something in this space that is half-baked.
So they're the first ones I've heard use the term physical AI. And then really now I've been hearing 4 categories really exist of AI, and I'm kind of trying to still learn what fits into what category. But I know physical AI is really kind of around robotics, and it's very interesting to see how that moves forward, because again, to your earlier point, garbage data in, garbage data out, what are we really actually recording and learning about robots and movement and vision, in the physical AI sense.
Yep. What are the 4 categories, Courtney?
Oh man, it's like generative and physical, and then perception, and I can't remember the 4th. Okay. Somebody please help me on that.
Hey, we're all learning here, so this is not a panel of experts. This is a panel of people that are interested in working on stuff and, want to generate discussion. So if anybody in the audience, and I did not figure out how the heck to see the comments here, so I'm sorry, this has not been one of our normally kind of scheduled interactive panels. Maybe you guys and some of your MOT colleagues can go through the comments if there are any. After this and kind of touch base with some people or answer some questions if there are any that you guys feel like you can touch on. Ashlesha, any last comments that you want to make? I think I overtalked when you had something to say just a minute ago.
I was just saying that on the personal front, I would really love AI to do my laundry and dishes.
That's where I'm still waiting on the physical thing to come and be able to do something that makes some sense for me. Yeah. And I think there's definitely some companies still working on that. I know Google had a big division working on everyday tasks for robots that I was really interested in and kind of impressed with. And I think they shut that down last year, or at least reduced the scope of that a whole lot. So the humanoids are a whole nother bag that we will not discuss right now. But I know that there's very split opinions on whether that's something that we should even be pursuing. And then there's the people pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into it. And so clearly someone will make that work eventually. Whether it's any of the current players that are actually in business right now, though, is questionable. But I don't know. The way I look at it, I was like, as long as there's still somebody that has a lot of money that's willing to keep pouring money into it, it will eventually pop. Mm-hmm. Question is when, and are any of these forecasts that are saying they'll be ubiquitous by 2030 and, you can buy one cheaper than a car and they'll be in every home. I'm still a little skeptical about that. But, I don't know. The LLMs are getting better faster than I maybe thought. I remember I was on a podcast sometime last year or maybe the year before when ChatGPT had first come out. This was 3 months after ChatGPT came on the scene and just blew everybody's minds. I was on a podcast and the host was insistent that within 3 months, everything about work is going to change. Everything about how you work is going to be completely different. And I was not that gung-ho about it. I thought, having kind of lived through this AI hype back in 2016 where neural nets were new on the scene and people wanted to solve problems with AI, and we ended up, most of them still just, needing statistical machine learning and better Excel. I think I saw. I'm basing my own experience. I'm basing my expectations on my own experience a little bit, and I feel like we usually think things are going to go faster than they do. But I'm also totally open to the possibility that now I'm wrong, because a lot of things have happened that I couldn't have predicted, wouldn't have. I don't think that any of us have the mental models to predict what this is going to do and how quickly it's going to change. I guess the only thing that I still feel pretty confident about is that some of the factories that have been making the stuff that we use and have been making them for the last 100 years, they're not all going to change overnight. And so we will still have we may have a robot in our home doing our dishes, and we will still be like blowing up balloons that have been made in the same machine for the last 100 years. Because that is also another thing about, just straight up like custom designed automation and discrete machinery. That stuff just cranks out stuff until for the end of time, as long as it's properly maintained, right? And so I think there isn't a need to reinvent the wheel for everything. But this is an exciting time to live in. So thank you guys for coming and having this discussion with us, even though it's not, the, oh my gosh, we all just walked away with a brand new, revelation that we never thought of. But I think this is just a very important discussion to keep on top of. And I can't wait to hear or see the announcements of what you guys are working on.
Absolutely.
With that, any final parting words or things you guys want people to know? Where should they go to talk to you guys if they want to work with you? Is that mastowltechnologies.com?
Yep, it's mastowltechnologies.com.
Okay. And then, connect with Alex Poole, CEO, on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure he's, pretty open to talking to people that are in this space, and ask around about him. Everybody knows that it's a great company run by good people, that is both, has those long roots in the industry and is also at the forefront of technology. So I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you, Courtney, for joining. And thank you, everyone. Have a great Thursday afternoon. Bye.